All right, folks. I've gotten to know Tom Boys a little bit over the last little while. And look, I gravitate towards great minds in the game. This man over here on your screen, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, go check it out. Tom Boys is one of the best. And I'm thankful that you would join me today. Tom, how are you doing?
Doing great, Mark. Pleasure to be on one of my favorite podcasts. So privileged to finally actually make it to the big time.
You have no idea how happy that makes me that you would say that. But anyway, this is not about me, it's about you. Look, before we get into Upgame and all the lessons you have to share from your work on the DP World Tour and everywhere else, tell the global audience about you, please. Give us the brief bio.
Yeah, so obviously, if I start where I am now, I'm working as a performance analyst, performance coach, however you want to dress it up, with players on the PGA European Tour. So some names: Tommy Fleetwood, Jason Day, Matt Wallace, Lucas Herbert, Johannes Veerman. They're the five I look after day to day.
Yeah.
I've probably come into that space from quite a different angle to most. And it was very much a playing background, and I then learned the stats math side after my playing days. So it started off in the UK.
We get old, dude. All us old timers, they were like, dang, if only I knew this stuff back when I was playing.
Exactly. So I played county golf, which would be state golf for the American audience, England boys, and I was quite fortunate. The England boys team at the time I was in it, you had Tommy Fleetwood, Eddie Pepperell, Tom Lewis, Tyrrell Hatton, were all my age group. So good in one way, in that you were competing against great players like that, and it's been interesting to follow their careers since. Quite tough to make some of the teams with some of those players in there as well. And ironically, we didn't actually win anything the year I was in it, despite all of those. So this goes to show. But played that, turned pro, knocked around on the mini tours a little bit, and I'd always been a big stats data type of guy. I'd plan my practice with practice routines, etc. But when I was turning pro, I sort of felt that there was a gap in some of what the data was telling me. So at the time, I built a very tedious, glossed up Excel spreadsheet with some of the things. So things like my distance to intended target. If I missed a green, was it an easy, medium, or hard spot where I'd left myself? Just to try and make a bit more sense of some of the more traditional stats like strokes gained, greens hit, etc. So I suppose I was testing that myself as a player. Tested some other sort of like pre-tournament bits and pieces, and then ultimately got put in touch with Samir at Upgame, and we've sort of merged the two together into a really cool app and product.
I will say so. I'm thankful that I got introduced to it, and I'm thankful that now I'm a partner, I guess, in a way with you guys. Hey, a couple questions from your intro there. First off, of that group of studs, Fleetwood, Pepperell, Tyrrell Hatton, you, Tom Lewis, who was the guy that was most expected to kind of hit the big time of that group? Was there such a feeling amongst you guys on the team?
Yeah, I think at that time, you had Tommy, Eddie Pepperell, and Tom Lewis. They were the three. Certainly, if you saw Tommy and Tom Lewis, particularly how they swung a golf club and hit the ball, it was seriously impressive. I'd say Eddie was a bit more of a tactician and a sort of good plotter around the golf course, managed his game really well. And I mean, obviously, all of those have won on tours and done really well for themselves. Tyrrell at that stage was sort of on the outside a little bit. He came probably into the England squads a little bit later than boys golf, but he still did well. We roomed in a boys tournament in Canada that he won, so still a good player and still quite similar to he is today, should we say.
I've got to ask, because everyone listening to this is like, what was it like to room with Tyrrell Hatton? Share some of the tea there, not all the stories though.
You know, he was great, and he still is. Like you probably met him off the golf course as well, and providing he hasn't just free putted 18, and you see him a second later, he's a great guy too. I've got a lot of time for him. Bumped into him at the Open this year again. They played a practice round, and just a really good personality. Obviously, on the golf course, if things don't go how he would like, the red mist can descend, and that was always there. But I think he's learned to channel that his way, and obviously doing great things. So obviously, great to see.
Yeah. Speaking of channeling this, channeling things one's way, I feel like, and this is coming from a golf teacher in me, and I'm talking to a performance analyst in yourself. I often find that people in our industry, especially golf teachers, it's that idiom where if all you have in your tool belt is a hammer, then everything is a nail. And as a golf teacher, I feel like it's intellectually lazy when the player doesn't play very well to start just to look at the golf swing and where it misfired. But you made a point earlier, and I want to kick the conversation off with this, where you were like, in the rudimentary stats you were keeping on your spreadsheet, you were charting them according to misses, like doable, not so much, or whatever the case was. And I feel like that is the one of the quickest ways that people watching this or listening to this, they can improve by just missing the ball in an easier place to play from. You agree with that?
Absolutely massive. We actually did some research on this we did a presentation at the World Amateur Team Championships for Upgame. And obviously within the app, you can categorize when you've missed a green, is it easy, medium, and hard? And what we were finding at that level for players, the difference between missing in a medium and hard spot was around half a shot.
You kidding me? A
Which,
half a shot.
so yeah, so you're saying it doesn't matter, like however good your short game is, if you're missing in hard spots and I'm missing in easier medium ones, I'm going to be getting up and down a lot more than you are. And that's something we speak about with players a lot, particularly if you're going into par fives. Be very aware of where you miss. Because if you miss in a hard spot straight away, like some of the tour players, their averages from there are sort of like 13, 14 feet. And if you know what the make percentages are from that range, that's significantly taking your chance of making birdie out of the equation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in a medium spot, someone like Jason, Tommy, they might average 7 foot, 8 foot from those type of situations. So a much bigger opportunity to make birdie just on where they've missed.
Yeah, then the odds are on certainly to be able to save that score. I want to mine this a little bit further too, because I think golfers mistakenly, and I used to be this until I learned and I spent time around guys like yourself, where we think of golf in terms of shots. Right, I'm at bogey, I'm one shot over par. But the way you guys put it together, it's like a culmination of quarters and halves of shots that you shaving little bits off your score all the way around your round of golf. And in the end, it adds up to two strokes where it's not like, oh my goodness, I just made a bogey and I'm one behind. And I think when golfers adopt that mindset, it almost liberates one to swing a bit more free at times. Would you go there with me?
Yeah, I think definitely, and that's, I guess that's the ultimate goal as a golfer. You want to play with freedom, with confidence, and I think ultimately just understand your game. Like what is it that makes you good? What are maybe some of your weaknesses that you want to try and hide through a bit of strategy as well? And like you say, quarter of a shot, that it doesn't sound much, but then you add that up, and certainly on PGA Tour level, you add that up over 4 rounds at the end of a tournament, and that can be quite a significant difference in prize money in this day and age as well.
Yeah.
So any little margin you can get, whatever level of player, is extremely important.
Okay, I want to do this. Maybe I'm on a crusade and so I should stand down, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because you have the benefit of all the data that you guys have mined from all of the thousands of up rounds and been logged in the Upgame app. Um, Look, I understand the advantage of driving it longer because then you've got shorter clubs in hand. But I want to ask you just about playing from the fairways, because with the advent of speed at the top of the game, the Fleetwoods, the J-Days and company, I find club golfers swinging themselves out of their shoes. They are littering golf courses with golf balls. and they're like, well, my club head speeds up, but the scores are going in the same direction, sadly. So what's your take on the distance versus accuracy thing as it now pertains to scoring better?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated area, and I think a lot of people, when Bryson first came out, got led down the wrong path with it. Certainly, when you think of the misses off the tee as well and what they're worth, I think roughly give or take, if you hit it 10 yards further, that will equate to around sort of 0.05 strokes per drive. So
Can we say that? Say that again. Say that again, and say it loud so the folks can hear that.
Yeah. So about 10 extra yards, you're looking at around 0.05 per drive on that. Now, obviously, 14 drives around, that would be around 0.7. And everyone thinks, oh, that sounds good. We'll have a bit of that. And too right, we'll have a bit of that. However, you miss a fairway, 0.3 comes off that straight away. And that's missing a fairway. That's not missing it behind a tree where you might have to chip out sideways, and that could be 3/4 of a shot. So all of a sudden you're already at a loss. You hit it in a water hazard, there's -1, so you're making a loss. Or you're hitting it out of bounds, God forbid, -2. So keeping those big penalties off the tee shots is vitally important. And you see this with players as well. I mean, I constantly preach to people about be strong with driver, because it's such a big separator club. And I was looking before, the top 3 on strokes gained off the tee, well, top 4 in strokes gained off the tee on the PGA Tour this year: Mr. Scotty Scheffler, Mr. Ludwig Oberg after his rounds this week, Rory McIlroy and Patrick Cantlay. Now, that's quite a good indication that if you can drive the ball well, you might have a bit of a future in this game. Mm-hmm. But what they aren't doing, they're not hitting it, obviously hit it a long way, but they're not hitting it a long way into bad positions. They're still hitting a very good percentage of fairways with that. And just because they might be ranked 100th or 80th in driving accuracy, if you equate to what that is versus the guys who are 10th and 20th, it's not like it's massive amounts. It might be like half a shot, half a fairway around in some cases. So they're still keeping it in play, they're long with it, and obviously they can then just keep accumulating these quarter of a strokes we spoke about before. But the folks at home who, and I see it with players as well, they jump out the boots, they then are missing the centre of the club face, they're hitting those toe hooks, they're hitting horrible little heel squiffs down the middle, and hit the middle of the club face first and foremost. And I think that's something a lot of coaches would back up as well. And certainly in this day and age, with there's great things like the stack system and all the speed and fitness knowledge that's out there now, that you can work in the gym to try and get distance, but don't be doing that at the extent of missed strikes, at the extent of bringing more penalty shots, or we call them major misses within the app. So if you're having to hit recovery shots from behind trees, they add up significantly.
Yeah. Look, I love that. And now you got my mind spinning. So I want to go further, and I want to test my old school insight versus your new school data, if you will. I've always sort of maintained, and folks who listen to this podcast or who have listened for a while have heard me say this, I'm like, if you're good at shot number 1, you'll make fewer big numbers. And if you're good at shot number 3, you're going to make lots of 3s and 4s. So I want to talk about shot number 3 and pitches, bunker shots, that greenside sort of stuff, putting. But all the greats that I've seen, like I talked to Nick Price, and I would call him a mentor. And Pricey was always preaching, I try and play from the fairway because that allows me to play offense with my iron game. So I want you to share some data about the value of just hitting quality iron shots, and sometimes just hitting the ball on the green and not necessarily going for the flag, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was actually a really good case of this in Dubai at the weekend on the 15th hole. It was short par 4 DP World Tour Championship, and Tommy Fleetwood, he was one of the players who, probably one of the few players who actually laid up off that tee. Had an 8-iron in, hit it to about 12, 15 foot and roll it in for birdie. Now I think the commentators were a little bit shocked at his position in the tournament and him doing that. But then you look and you think, well, he wasn't having a brilliant day with the driver for him. He's obviously one of the best players with an 8-iron in the world. We know that. And his theory was to that front pin, if he's in the fairway, he can get it to 15 foot a lot of the time with how his iron play is. If he hits that drive and he pulls it and he's in the rough to a front pin over that bunker from 60 yards, he's going to struggle to get it that close. There's a lot said about try and get it as close as you can to the green, and that is certainly true to an extent, but there is a lot of variables. If you're playing to a green that's above you with a big deep bunker short, downwind and the green's firm, that significantly changes from if you've got a green that's like a soft pudding. So there's a lot of variability in golf that needs to be factored in, but certainly these top guys, you see them when they're winning tournaments week in, week out. They're not hacking every shot from the trees. They're in the fairway a lot. I mean, the one that people sometimes brought up was Bryson at Winged Foot, and he actually hit more fairways than the field average that week. But that wasn't talked about because that wasn't the sort of sexy story of the week, really. It was, Bryson was slamming driver everywhere and hitting it into the rough and gouging it on the green. And he was hitting shots out the rough on the green because everyone was that week. I mean, I might even try and find it as we're talking here, but everyone was missing the fairways those weeks. He was just missing them 50 yards further down and still hitting more than most.
Excuse me, I was talking with mute on. While you're looking for that there, for the folks who are listening to this down the track, because this was recorded in 2023, right after the DP World Tour Championship and the RSM Classic. And Ludwig Aubert was virtuoso. Played solid the first 2 rounds, then shoots 61-61 over the weekend. The guy freaking was lashing it down the fairway, barely missed a fairway. Hit a number of greens, was putting awesome. But once again, it seemed to me like he was playing from the fairway, and if the flag stick was accessible, he was after it. If it wasn't, he just played to the safe side of the flag. So I want you then, please, to just talk about, again, sometimes, just putting the ball on the green and taking 2 and leaving is not a bad thing really either, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, without giving all the secrets away, one of the players I work with, his mentality each week is he likes to go through holes 1 to 18 and look at what are the scoring holes and what do I need to play them in for the week. So it might be, right, first hole, 1 under is a good score for the week on. Second hole's a really tough, strong par 4. Level par is a great score on it.
Yeah.
Third hole's an easy par 5. You want to be playing that in around 3 under. And that's how he likes to visualize it as his starting points at the start of the week. And then you build a strategy around that. And obviously, if you're looking at playing a tough hole, you don't need to chase the flag. You can hit that to 30 foot, 2 putt, get out of there in the knowledge that you've probably gained quarter of a shot, even half a shot in some cases on the field just from that. Like you say on Oberg, he's long and straight, that sort of dream combination that everyone wants. And then when he gets a wedge in his hand, he knows certain situations he can be aggressive, he can be positive, he can hit those shots inside 15 foot that gives him the opportunities to make the putts. Because this was an interesting stat as well. We were looking at for some research for that World Am, and if you took the winners on the PGA Tour, this was done, I think, just before the Tour Championship.
Okay.
How many putts outside 10 foot they hold a tournament, and it was only just over 2 around. The guys who were winning the tournaments.
Really?
8.2.
That is almost unfathomable. So you're saying that the guys who won events, this is pre-Tour Championship on the Tour in 2023, the average number of putts they made outside of 10 feet for the week was only 2?
8.2 it was, so just over 2. Tour average was 4.8. This was, obviously, it might have changed with some of the recent events that are still classed as this season, but again, they over exceeded in the sort of 5 to 10, 10 to 15 foot range. So sort of what you expect from people who win tournaments. They hit a few more iron shots in close. They take advantage of those shots by converting the putts, but they're not holing 25 footers every like 4 times around. Certainly not week on week.
Well, I love the anecdote there, and I'm going to let you share the screen now so we can go through the app so folks can plan and prepare and chart strategy. I love the strategy that you listed where one of your clients was like, all right, how are they going to try and play the hole or at least set markers for the week? But I feel like with that observation there too, that people of the ill impression where they're thinking they've got to play perfectly for, I don't know, 36 holes or 18 holes or 72 holes, whatever. But it's the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, these guys cobble together rounds and they hit that hot streak and they pick some up. And at the end of it all, they're 12, 14, 16 under. It's not like it's all sunshine lollipops, right?
No, and that's something I think that the best players are really good at. When they catch fire, they go for it and they shoot that 64. I mean, probably the perfect point to illustrate this would be Matt Wallace last week in Dubai. And after 2 rounds, he was very much middle of the pack in that field. Good front nine in Dubai, and then proceeded to birdie every single hole on the back nine to shoot 60. And that's sort of what they do. They suddenly just catch fire, they flick a switch, and right, let's make another birdie and another. And it's one of that you can't often force that. I counter that you can't really. You sort of have to be patient and wait for it a little bit. And he actually said that himself. He did a really good job. But then they just suddenly they find that groove, they get in it, and then they shoot that low round that suddenly propels them up there.
And Matty,
but one of the great things with Matt as well, I think he might have been the leader in the least bogeys for the week as well, which again illustrates that patience and just waiting for it to happen.
I love him. He's been on the show. He's not the most patient guy in the world, too. and it's. I want to just say this, and please go ahead and share the screen now. You can open up the screen. I'll share a quick Matt Wallace anecdote. Listen to the podcast with him, folks. It was great. You can't force that sudden lightning rod to hit either. You just got to play and hang around, and all of a sudden something happens and it builds on itself. All right, we for the folks listening on audio now, you should go and watch on YouTube, because what Tom is doing is he's opened up the dashboard of the Upgame app, and he's going to talk us through some of the features. So why don't you take the microphone and go ahead, Tom?
Yeah, perfect. So obviously, Upgame as an app, we set out between me and Samir with two sort of clear goals. Both of us as players, we wanted to make stats as quick and easy to collect as possible, whilst making sure we get it as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
Secondly, we then wanted to deliver really good insights back to the user. So not just stats, graphs, and numbers just because they look nice. We want a player to be able to put stuff in, come back, and have actual action that he or she can take onto the golf course and apply. So in a quick demo of how it's done, you go onto any golf course. I think there's about 40,000 of them mapped within the app.
I need to commend you. I went to a golf course in Warner Robins, Georgia. For the folks in the rest of the world, Warner Robins is not the biggest place in the world. And I was like, I'm going to try the Upgame guys on for size. And I typed in the golf course's name, and lo and behold, there it was. So you guys got the globe covered, man. I was impressed.
Yeah, it is quite impressive when you think of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And within the app, we've got two versions. There's a basic version and a pro. The basic still gives you strokes gained, dispersion numbers, a lot of the stats you will see on ShotLink on the PGA Tour website still. Right. The pro is what I use with the Tour pros, and sort of any sort of keen amateurs really are on it. And that includes things like dispersions to the player's target. Great illustration of this point of view. Think of the 12th hole at Augusta National, front right pin. majority of players hopefully are aiming, say, 20, 30 foot left of that flag, long left, trying to hit it between the bunkers. If they hit a perfect shot onto that target, what we don't want showing up as a coach or a player is that they've hit a 30-foot pull with a 9-iron. We want to know that they're 30 foot away from the flag, but we want to know that they've hit that bang on their target, particularly if you are using dispersion patterns to work out a player's bias. Is he missing right, left, short, long? And then using those to help plan your strategy, which we'll look at in a little bit as well.
You know what? I love that too, because, I'm friends with Mark Brody, and I think the strokes gain metrics are fantastic, but there are holes in them. And like, look, not every 5-footer is the same. I can give you 5-footers you'll never make, and I'll give you 5-footers you'll make the lion's share of the time. And I love your observation there, because you're right. Sometimes you can hit a great drive that gets a crooked bounce and ends up in the rough, and strokes gained is like, well, you lost strokes over there, but you're like, I middled that thing and it caught a gust of breeze or whatever the case might be. So that's what I love about what you guys are doing, where you set the qualifiers, and then it's just a pure measurement when you're collecting your data afterwards. It's like, I wanted to go here, I didn't go there, and this was the dispersion. And so all of a sudden, you can start to help yourself aim better on future shots and rounds.
Exactly. I talk about it in that you've got like your proximity to target is ultimately the quality of your golf shot that you've hit.
Yeah.
That's where I'm trying to hit it, how close have I hit it to that. If you take the flag and the flag as a target, that is then okay, that's the result. And if there's a big discrepancy between the two, maybe you need to look at the targets you're picking. So we can actually tell quite a bit about a player's strategy from within the app, and that's happened in the past with a player that they were really, really good at hitting it close to the target, but they were quite a long way away from the hole. So they were basically giving away that advantage. So turned out the following week they were playing a golf course where it was a birdie fest. The greens were soft, the pins were quite generous because of the Pro-Am format. And between him and the caddy, it was decided, let's use this week to move our target a couple of yards closer than we have been, be a bit more aggressive, and see what comes back. What came back was a player led the field in strokes gained approach and won his first tournament. So it was a good tick of the box for.
Like I said, just fixing your golf swing is intellectually lazy. Okay, for the audio guys, I want to talk about the round planner, but we're in the Upgame app and we're looking overhead at the first hole at the stadium course at TPC Sawgrass. Off you go, boys. You tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, so you can set tee in the pin, that obviously lovely sort of map of the golf course, and then you simply mark on for tee shot. This was the line I was trying to hit my tee shot on. And then drag on the map to where your shot finished. So the distance at the top will tell you how far that is, assuming that I'm a better player than I am these days. I've hit it straight down my target line. I can then add extra elements. So again, we leave it up to the player. There's some things we make compulsory, like the results of the shot. So like I touched on earlier, if you've missed a fairway, not just have you missed it in fairway or rough, is it in play? Which, you know what, on a drivable par 4, in play could be you've hit it into the front bunker where it's an easy bunker shot. Minor might be you've missed it in a par 4 in rough or a fairway bunker, but you can still hit the green. Major, that might be you've missed it behind a tree. You're having to try and hit a hook round, a chip out. So a very different scenario being in the rough, able to hit the green with a normal shot, or having a chip out sideways. So that's how we categorize it.
Yeah, it's just way more granular, because what Tom is showing for the audio listeners now is basically it's a drop down menu that's popped up with shot results, start, lie, was it from off the tee in the rough, whatever. Then it even shows wind direction, and so there's a whole lot of information that you can start to get that's just charting what you're doing all the time. So at the end of all of this, I guess you can go, well, dang, I notice now when I'm playing into a left to right wind, I'm not as sharp as what I was when I'm the other way around, kind of thing, even, right?
Absolutely. And again, we for those who get a bit scared by all the detail, they are optional. But at the same time, the more you put in, the more you can get out. And just the other week, there was a a player as well. I looked at his data, and from like 150 to 200 in right to left wins, his shot pattern was extremely left biased, and he was having quite a lot of hard missed greens on that left side of his shot pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So straight away you can go to the player one, like you've either got to look at the shot choice, or you've got to be allowing more yardage away from the left when you're picking those targets. So it's, again, we're not collecting all this data just for ticking boxes. It's stuff that you can get back and actually use to improve your scores. So obviously you enter that data, you save it, you can zoom in and out on the map here. The flag's tucked on the left, so I might have been aiming, say, 15 foot right of it.
Yeah.
I mark that on. I've hit a terrible shot left into the bunker, which I'm not very good these days.
Bunker is
And
not a good spot either on Sawgrass. That thing's deep. All right.
yeah, we don't advise people going in there to a left pin if anyone has the fortune to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, end shot result, like I spoke earlier, you can say, was it an easy shot? So easy we categorize as sort of basic chips or putts from the fringe typically. Medium will be the majority of your short game shots, and hard will be those short side, really difficult shots where, you know what, anything 15 foot or better is a great shot. So you can mark that on. And this is the reason for that is it gives a much more accurate reflection of strokes gained around the green. So again, if I miss 3 greens all in hard spots, Mark, because he's a smart guy, misses 3 greens all in easy spots, his strokes gained will hopefully look a lot better than mine. Not necessarily because of short game ability, but because of where we've played those shots from. And that's really important. And this happened to me out in Dubai as a player. I came off, my strokes gained around the green was -2. But then I start to go through and think, well, I was short-sided there. I was plugged in a bunker here. I was short-sided again here. And really, my short game was fine. My approach play was what I needed to do. And I thankfully went off to the range and actually had a decent second day there, which was quite rare on the Pro Tour days. But
it reminds me of a quote. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote I shared with a young golfer who was really good as a junior, went to college, kind of lost his game. So he's come to me, and I got a text message the other day from him saying, just shot 66. It's the best I've played in like 5 years. And the lesson I gave him about the swing was minuscule. But the lesson that I shared with him was 2 quotes, one by Gary Player and the other one by Ben Hogan. And the Gary Player one was, hit every shot as if it's the last shot you're ever going to hit. So in other words, prepare for it adequately. And then the other quote was by Ben Hogan that basically said, the most important shot in golf is the next one. And if you honestly respect that, you'll be like, okay, I'm looking at the flag, deep bunker left, that's a no-go zone. Yeah, I want to hit it close, but I'm going to hit it on the safe side because everything's just going to be better because of that. And so what you guys are showing here, once again, you can start to highlight that by just keeping accurate data.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come on to this with the shot patterns, but there was I played a bit with one of the football players from down the road back here, and very keen amateur player, competitive as all those sporty types are. Mm-hmm. But every time we played, he was never up to pin high. He was always short, like most amateurs are in terms of shot patterns. So I said to him, he was partnering me this day, just right, play to the back edge of the green. Just trust me on this today. Try it. And I think he hit 13 greens, most he's ever hit in a round of golf. he took the money that day. Through no technical advice, just purely a smarter target based on what his pattern was.
Fantastic.
And so really, really good illustration of that. So again, back to the app entry, you could enter club, you could enter shot type, you could enter pin section, save that. Target was a flag. I've actually played a decent bunker shot to just past the hole. I can enter that. And then for putting, the one thing we make compulsory is speed. Anyone who has had the fortune to watch a good putter will see, obviously, they hole out very, very well. That's a given. But their speed control is exceptional. You watch Jason Day, you watch Jordan Spieth when he was at his peak. If they missed a putt, it was generally perfect speed, like a foot past the hole. if it was going in the hole, you could see the speed it was going in at. Now, how we categorize it on Upgame, we have obviously hole, if it's in the hole, and then we class SZ past and SZ short. And all that means is within 2 foot past the hole or within 2 foot short.
Gotcha.
Reason for that, if you're within 2 foot, you're 99.9% certain you're going to hole the next one, hopefully.
Yeah.
If you're outside that, obviously it's bringing in a risk of 3 putts. And certainly if you speak to most putting people, they will say the perfect speed past can be between like 11 to 18 inches, depending on the greens and vice versa. So what I tend to say to players, if you're 10 to 25 foot, really focus on hitting a lot of putts, hole or safe zone past. If you do that, you're tilting the odds very much back in your favour for holing putts in the long run.
Cool.
And it's something you see the good putters, the Jasons, Lucas Herbert, who was #1 on tour a couple of years ago, really, really good at that. And they hole more than most as a result.
Yeah,
the poorer putters, you start to see a foot short, and that's obviously not going to go in at that speed. So we let the player mark that. They can put things like putt break, have they missed right or left in as well. So again, really digging deep within the app. If I do a hole in real time now, you'll see just sort of how quick and easy it is for a player once you're used to the system.
I mean, you could go through charting your round afterwards that in just just a few minutes once you're used to using the app.
Absolutely. And the other thing I think that gets missed is quite often we're on a golf course for 4 hours plus, unfortunately, in this day and age. And you sometimes forget some of the things that happen.
Exactly.
Whereas when you're doing this, it's often really, really good reflection time. So as you're marking on the target, you might think, actually, that wasn't the greatest target I've ever picked. So you're actually learning from the entry by reflecting on it as well. So that's another real great bonus of it. Once you've played around, you can go in, you can see all sorts of stats from that. So I'll quickly jump into the analysis while we're on it.
Okay.
So obviously strokes gained is a big part of it. So you can go in, you can see what you score, the tee approach, short game putting breakdown of that. You can see how you've played the par 3s, 4s and 5s. And I'd say the benefit of the pro version of the app, you can go in and you can start to see that shot pattern. So you can see here, I've had 2 major misses in this round, both 40 yards right of target. Now, that's clearly not ideal. There's not many golf courses you can get away with those misses, unfortunately. So I then have a very clear message that I can take to my coach and say, right, I've got this big miss with driver. What do I need to do to fix it?
Yeah.
On the flip side, if those 2 yellow dots that you see on the screen were quite close to my target line, that would be where a strategy error would be screaming out, in that you've hit a good shot close to the target, but you've ended up in a bad position. Exactly. So again, using this information, you can start to distinguish between the two and obviously see what your patterns are as a player. You can also
feature that too. You can break it down between tee shots and iron shots because of that drop down there, right?
Exactly. And you can also go in and actually see a round of golf. So if I go on here, you can see second hole at my club, I've aimed here. I've hit the ball in the right rough here with driver, and that shot, I got 0.06 strokes gained on that one shot. So again, great for educating you on what a particular shot gains and loses.
When you're planning the round or you're picking the aim point off the tee, are you also picking it to a certain yardage, or are you just drawing it down the middle of the fairway to any old spot, or are you going to the yardage intended?
For tee shots, it can be just a straight continuous line, because what we found, like a player, are you trying to hit it 315? Are you trying to hit it 320? We're not sure, but really the line is the important thing. For an approach shot, I always say it's like if you grabbed the flag out the green and then you stabbed it into a spot on the green where you wanted the ball to finish. that's then very important because you might want to be a little bit longer the pin, you might want to be right of the pin. So that exact spot becomes a lot more important for approach shots.
And then people start to realize too, to your anecdote about your footballer friend, is that, strokes gained approach is not just accuracy, it's largely, oftentimes more distance control with the iron game.
Absolutely. Proximity. A player the other day was looking at some data from him, and his green percentage, hard miss percentage was as good as a player gaining 3/4 of a shot more than him. Mm-hmm. But because of the targets he was picking and a bit of proximity stuff, he was just nowhere near this example player we were using for him. So for him, it's keep hitting the same amount of greens, but be a little bit more positive with his targets. Was a little bit of the takeaway for him, which is quite rare. Usually it's the opposite. You're trying to pull players a little bit safer. Mm-hmm. And probably 90% of the people on this podcast will be better being more safer, aiming past the pin.
Yeah, you've said 90% of the folks watching this. We do have professionals that watch and listen to this, but I do feel like the amateur golfer misses when it comes to just round planning. And there's a cool feature, the one that I've fiddled with the most in the app, where it's basically the round planner. Why don't you walk us through that real fast? Because if you're going to a place you haven't played also, you can get an advanced look at what the golf course may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to jump to a hole that will illustrate this really, really well. So 17 at Sawgrass, I think any golfer can picture that one straight away. And let's put that lovely Sunday pin position on the right that they seem to like there. And if we say right, I mean, on a very basic level through this feature, you can obviously go on, you can see, right, it's 132 to carry that bunker. It's 150 to the back edge of the green, which gives me 11 yards past the flag. But then the really cool bit, once you've got your data into the app, and on a side note, we've also just announced a partnership with TrackMan where you're soon going to be able to import your TrackMan data to help with this feature. But for now, I can go in, I can say, right, from my data from sort of January of this year, and if I say I want it between sort of like 130 and I put 160 and get a good sample size, this will upload all my shots that I've hit on Upgame, and I can.
That's awesome. For the audio, imagine the island green. So now all the shots that Tom fictitiously has hit between 130 and 160 yards, all that data, that TrackMan data, has been now superimposed over the 17th green at Sawgrass. And if he's aiming at the flag, there's a lot of the balls that are on the green and there's some balls that are off to the right-hand side. So this is going to help you to move your target point a little bit more to the center of the green to account for that odd right miss. And now all of a sudden, by moving, he's done this. He's projected by moving the landing spot. Oh, what's that? 5-6 yards left of the hole. Just all but 2 of the balls are on the green just by changing his aiming point.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, certainly as players, like you might not be aware of some of your biases with certain clubs and from distant ranges. And bear in mind, I'm obviously a guy who's very switched on and attention to detail. But the first time I put all my data in, had a real good look at it after sort of 20 rounds, it became really apparent I had a right bias with my wedges, but when I went up to sort of 4-iron, 5-iron, that bias became quite left. So just from a playing side, I went out and I knew, right, any right pin with a wedge in my hand, I needed to be a little bit more conservative with my targets. A left pin, I could be quite positive too. But then if it was a 4 or 5-iron, I actually had to do the reverse. A left pin, I'm more conservative too. A right pin, I can be a little bit more aggressive than normal too. And that's an understanding that I would never have got without putting the data in. And it's something that, as you've seen now, if we're 17 at Sawgrass and I fire at the flag, and I'll do it in real time, you can see I'm going to be going to that drop zone quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, out of all of the shots you hit, that's what, about a third of them that are in the water just because of what the shot pattern is? Yes, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Almost
a
probably
quarter, a quarter at
over it.
best, I would say.
Yeah. Whereas just centre of the green there, what's that, 8 yards left of the flag?
Everything's dry. Look at that. You've moved the
Everything's
target 8 yards left of the hole. Now everything is on land, and you're not making that disastrous big number.
exactly. So a great illustration of that. And then if we jump to 18, I'll show you sort of a tee shot as well. You can go on, you can choose driver, and you can see, right, if I aim middle of the fairway on 18, you can still see I'm going to hit quite a lot left because of how tight that water gets up 18. And this is where you see on 18 at Sawgrass, you see the right side of that hole filled with golf balls through the weakened divot marks, because players know that if you hit it in that water, there's a good chance you're back on the tee. So it's like a 2-shot penalty. So you cannot bring that into play. So a lot of the guys will aim up that right side. And what you will see is that they will still have quite a lot of balls on the fairway from that left of target, because the left side of your shot pattern will catch the fairway. Yes, there will be some up the right in trouble. But on the whole, you're taking that big number out. And again, I differ to other coaches in I like players to be flexible with the targets. And I think what this tool does is it allows you as a player to enhance your golfing IQ, understanding your game and your tendencies, which to me, that's the ultimate goal we're trying to do. And if you can get on that hole and you know, okay, I need to be aiming this probably at the right edge of the fairway because of my shot pattern, or on 17, I've got a right bias with those clubs, so I need to be 8 yards left of the flag. Those decisions can make such a difference to a player. And you could go out tomorrow morning and apply that. You don't need to go and hit 2,000 balls on a driving range, changing your golf swing. So it's the little easy wins from just a little bit of effort.
Love it. You've just given me the title for this podcast: Enhancing Your Golf IQ with Tom Boys. This round planning feature is awesome. We've got a little time left. Anything else you want to highlight to the folks? I think this app is fantastic. And I'm still, to be honest with you people, I'm still figuring out my way around here too. It's just, there's so much in it, and there's so much that can be gleaned from it. Just like that observation over there with a shot planner in your round, and kind of knowing what your proximity, what your dispersion is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the parts of the app, there's obviously the entry, there's the analysis that gets back, and in the cumulative analysis, we help you get through that data as well, in that we actually will identify, here are the 3 areas that you're scoring the best at.
That is cool. It's
And
actually,
based off
folks,
an algorithm.
audio listeners, this app is basically giving you, okay, you are the best at, and the example is your 15-yard short game fairway strokes, short game from the rough, 175-yard approach, and then it says areas to improve, tee strokes gain, 25-foot putt strokes. And so it's basically telling you how you can go and practice as well, just from the data you've put in it.
Yeah, and we're actually upgrading this in the new year to make it even easier. So you'll see there, for me, my top area to improve is off the tee. So what would obviously make sense in the analysis would be jump to tee shots, and straight away I can start to depict why that is. So my driving distance, 269, obviously quite a bit below tour average. So that's going to make it hard for me to gain in the first place. But then if I'm looking at accuracy numbers, I can see that I'm hitting balls into recovery or penalty positions sort of over 15% of the time. I'm missing a 45-yard target zone 33% of the time. So I've got too many of these big misses.
Wide balls, yeah.
I can start to go in. I can see what that pattern looks like. So I look at just sort of driver here, and I can see sort of, right, it's a horrible shot pattern. There's misses big ways left and big ways right. Short left, so those quick duck hooks, and then obviously the reaction to that is that long for dear life, big high rise.
Yeah.
So straight away I've got my tee shot strategy. How can I improve? Right, I need to first and foremost bring these bad shots in, and then I will start worrying about, right, can I get a little bit more length? can I get that strokes gain number up a bit? But I also know from the insights page that I have strengths as a player, and I want to keep building and improving those. I think it was the sort of late great Bob Torrance spoke, never weaken a strength to strengthen the weak, and that's, I think, massively important for players. Even the very best, they will have one area that they are outstanding at. Typically, you think Rory with his drive, and you think Colin Morikawa with his approach play. You think of Bryson was another one with the driver, wasn't he? Jason Day with his putting.
Yeah.
And they might not be outstanding at every area of the game. Certainly, if you're world number one, you're proficient at pretty much everything, but they are exceptional at certainly one or two areas. I mean, I think Scotty Scheffler was first in approach and tee shots last year, which helped him obviously mask that putting a little bit. So that's another, I think, really good takeaway for players. Be really good at what you're good at and keep building on that.
Certainly true. You can stop sharing the screen now so the folks can see you, so we can wrap. And what I love about this too, Tom, is because you're keeping this, it doesn't just have to be tournament rounds. You can keep it every time you play, because to me, the ultimate measure of a golf swing or one's game is the addition of pressure. So when you're out there on the course, it's different to doing it on the range. So you can say to your teacher, whoever he might be, to say, yo, look at me, man, with the driver in hand in this condition, I'm doing this all the time. We've got something now concrete we can direct our attention to and work on, and not just like, well, it's my golf swing or it's my driver that's misbehaving.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and one other feature we've got in the app is a practice section where we've put games in there. As a coach, you can create your own and you can log those scores over time. So for me, with the tee shots example there, I might go and do a tee shot game and I'll do that over time. Can I improve my scores at that? Hopefully. If not, I'm back to the drawing board to the coach and trying to find out why that isn't. And then the next phase of that, like you've alluded to, is that transferring onto the golf course and my stats? Again, hopefully yes. If not, I maybe need to come back, and if I'm good in practice, not good on the course, maybe need to reach out to a Bob Rotella or someone and look at that mental side as well. So
yeah,
that's that sort of improvement process that we want to try and cover really within the app. You analyze your data, you obviously practice and you plan it well, and then hopefully those stats improve.
Yeah, the app is easy to get, folks. You can just go to the website, which is upgame.com. I'm getting that correct, aren't I? Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, upgame.com. You can use the code on the mark and get a discount on this, which is fantastic. Tom, this has been tremendous. The app is fantastic. I know the folks are going to go and get it. Are you available? Can they follow you anywhere? Can folks take lessons from you as well? Or are you just too busy with the professionals and the elites?
So obviously a lot of my day-to-day is on that elite space. And as you know, with tour players, they take up time, but I still do dip in and out. I'm looking to do quite a bit of content for Upgame ongoing. So obviously we've got our Instagram page with Upgame is quite frequent that we update, and we'll put little articles and snippets out on there. I am on Instagram. I think what's it, SWA Boise, which is the SWA is my football team, the Super Wide Army. But I will post the occasional golfy thing on there ongoing. So anyone who wants to follow that is welcome to. We'll obviously post content in Upgame. And one of the things we are looking at doing as a team of analysts, if you put data in, you want to actually connect to that analyst for a Zoom call for a bit of insight as well. That's something we're going to be offering in 2024 as well. So myself and a couple of the other analysts who they themselves work with players on the tour. So that's going to be a really cool feature for the guys and girls to speak to us and hopefully improve their golf as well.
That's awesome. I must say, folks, the code is on the mark 15. Hey, Tom, appreciate your time. Thank you so very much. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you guys celebrate over there in the UK. I can't wait to see how our global tribe in this podcast and beyond, how they benefit from this thing. I mean, as far as apps go, and I've seen them all come and go. To me, this is the most in-depth one and the one that offers the most insight to be gleaned as well. So to you guys, my hat is off. It's a fantastic job. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me on, Mark, and obviously for your kind words on the product. And what I will say is, it's certainly not going to stop here. We've got a long product hit list. We've obviously got the link with Trackman now, and there's a lot of exciting things coming in 2024 on the product as well. So obviously, hopefully you download it and get benefit from it, and keep an eye out for some of the new features coming as well.
You guys are tireless. Thanks for your time, man.
No, great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.